You are too much. When Peter saw that MJ was injured, he immediately forgot about Tom Holland, and all he could think about was whether MJ had any serious problems. Hurry up and send MJ to the infirmary, what if something happens? However, he just wanted to help MJ, but he was stopped by Tom Holland just after he took a few steps. What's wrong with being too much? Tom Holland didn't know that he had offended his future neighbor in New York, and he still looked like he deserved a beating. He stretched out his face to Peter, kept pointing his fingers at that half of his face, and said sarcastically, I'm not looking for you, is Su Zichang coming to hit me? Now I will give you a chance to hit me personally, come. Hit this way. Hurry up. You bastard. Peter looked at Tom Holland in front of him. He clenched his fists, his eyes became a little dangerous. He was already angered by this guy in front of him, and it was not ordinary anger. You can scold me, you can bully me, but you can't bully MJ. I've never seen such a strange request. Peter roared angrily and punched Tom Holland hard in the face. He couldn't react at all. The moment the fist made contact with the face, Tom Holland's handsome face suddenly became extremely distorted, and then, as if he had been hit by a fast-moving truck, he was punched flying and slammed into the corridor on the other side of the locker. Pong. There was a loud bang, and the entire locker began to vibrate. Even though he had expected it in his heart, Peter was still frightened by the power of his punch. Wow, my strength has actually increased again. And, unbeknownst to Peter, the crowd was more surprised than he was. Oh, shit, when did Peter become so powerful? This damn Tom has been sanctioned again, I'm so happy. Did Sue teach Peter Chinese Kung Fu? I want to learn too. Tom really deserves to be beaten up, looking for work twice in a row, and this time he pushed MJ. There are roughly 2 emotions among the onlookers. Gloat. Surprise. Want to study. No one paid special attention to how Tom Holland was doing. It was obvious at a glance how annoying Tom Holland was. There were noisy discussions in his ears, pulling Peter out of his thoughts, and immediately walked towards MJ, who was sitting on the ground looking at him in a daze. However, Tom Holland didn't faint immediately, but he was already staring at him. He could only vaguely see Peter walking towards him. He thought he was going to make up the knife, and suddenly burst into tears. Don't hit me, please, don't hit me, woo woo, Peter, I was wrong, you can do whatever you want. Tom Holland is really a dog. He also never imagined that Peter, who usually looks thin and weak, actually punched him flying. Kicked to the iron plate twice. God, can't you afford it, can't you afford it? The more I thought about it, the more sad I felt. In the end, Tom Holland was crying, and he fainted gorgeously again. And Peter didn't look at Tom Holland again from the beginning to the end, but quickly helped MJ up. MJ, let's go to the infirmary. MJ is still a little confused and speechless. Suddenly, Peter punched Tom Holland, a 1.8-meter muscular man, flying away. To be honest, the shock of seeing this with his own eyes is indescribable. After sending MJ to the infirmary, he found that his ankle was only slightly sprained. He just needed to apply it and he would be fine after a little rest. Peter finally breathed a sigh of relief. Later, the teacher also went to Peter and Tom Holland. Tom Holland is fine, but his face is swollen and fat. After a series of discussions, the final result was naturally that Tom Holland was severely criticized and ordered to drop out of school, never admitting this guy. You know, Peter is also a super gifted student. A bad student with school violence and a gifted student, the school definitely knows how to choose. Another day of gaming at home. The sky has gradually darkened. Su Zichang rubbed his belly. I'm not very hungry, but I still need a pad. It's too wasteful to order takeaway, and I probably can't eat it. Go out and buy some bread. Su Zichang dressed up a bit and went out. However, to his surprise, he met Peter, who was also shopping in a convenience store, but he bought bread, while Peter bought eggs. Peter. Su Zichang stretched out his hand, ready to pat Peter on the shoulder. However, Peter, who was picking eggs, seemed to have eyes behind him, and stretched out his hand swiftly, blocking Su Zichang's hand. However, when he found out that the person behind was actually Su Zichang, Peter laughed awkwardly. Oh, so it's Zichang you? Su Zichang narrowed his eyes slightly. To be able to react so quickly, has Peter become Little Spider-Man? Unexpectedly, only these days after I left, Peter has turned into a little Spider-Man. Who else can I be? He had already considered it in his heart, but Su Zichang remained calm on the surface, as if he hadn't found anything. He hooked Peter's shoulder. Ah ha ha, Peter scratched his head in embarrassment. Spider telepathy doesn't know what's going on, isn't it that something threatening to oneself will only react when it approaches itself? Why did it suddenly happen just now? Out of order. After much deliberation, he couldn't figure it out, Peter could only put this mistake on the occasional failure of the ability he had just acquired. Peter, you've been happy lately. Su Zichang squinted his eyes, and said with a mean smile, during my absence, what happened? He could indeed see it. The current Peter is not quite the same as the slightly sullen boy before. He couldn't be more happy picking an egg. Today my relationship with MJ has become good friends. Speaking of this incident, Peter smiled happily, like a young boy in spring. In his opinion, this is indeed good news. It is usually difficult to say a word with MJ. He has officially evolved from a casual friend to a good friend, all thanks to MJ's sprained ankle in the afternoon. This matter is also solved, not promising. Su Zichang shook his head, although he has never been in a relationship, but this does not prevent him from mocking little Spider-Man. Step by step, step by step. Peter scratched his head, suddenly seemed to remember something, and said in surprise, by the way, Zichang, didn't you go back to bed? Why are you here? You know. Su Zichang gave Peter a look of, you understand, I understand, everyone understands. I have been there and come back. Looking for another chance to be lazy. Peter hammered Su Zichang's chest. Take me next time. Also, Ned is at my house. Aunt May cooked delicious food. Would you like to come? I have prepared Lego blocks. Let's build a big one tonight. Ned? That little black fat guy. Su Zichang scratched his head, just now that his stomach was empty, so he agreed. Peter's home is very close to Su Zichang's home, on the same street, otherwise you wouldn't meet in a convenience store. Seeing that Su Zichang agreed, Peter smiled happily and patted Su Zichang on the shoulder. Wait a minute, I'll go buy a box of eggs. If I don't buy them back, Aunt May will give me a good look. Good looking. Give me also Kong Kong. Anyway, Su Zichang didn't buy bread because he was going to eat at someone else's house. Wouldn't it be nice to have something warm to eat? In this way, Peter obviously just went to buy an egg, but brought back an extra mouth. Su Zichang also met Aunt May for the first time. The little Spider-Man in this world is different from the old 3 Spider-Man that Su Zichang saw, but a new version of Little Spider-Man. In fact, the new version of Little Spider-Man is not as good as the third version in terms of connotation and classic level, which means it is fun to watch, but what Su Zichang has to say is that Aunt May is very beautiful. The charm still exists. However, this is just an exclamation. Su Zichang is not interested in middle-aged women, and he is not the kind of big stallion who wants to sow seeds for women all over the world once he comes to a certain world. Let Aunt May leave it to Tony's driver. The dinner at Peter's house was a very typical Western dinner, with hamburgers, sandwiches, and vegetable salads. It seemed that because of Su Zichang and Ned, May had a few slices of steak. It's delicious, at least better than bread. During the chat at the dinner table, Su Zichang quickly won the favor of everyone with his humor, and asked pretendingly curiously, Peter, where is your uncle? Because everyone has a good impression of Su Zichang, and this matter is not a secret, so they talked to Su Zichang openly. Peter's situation is probably no father, no mother, no uncle, but the uncle's death is not so twists and turns, he was just killed by a car very simply. And Peter was still young at the time, so he has no big touch until now. He is not shy, he is very funny with his friends, and he is also popular with teachers at school. After listening to their explanation, Su Zichang looked suddenly enlightened and apologetic. I'm really sorry for asking such a question. Although Peter and the others didn't care, Su Zichang felt that he still had to say sorry. It's not a good thing to expose people's scars. In addition to Aunt May, Su Zichang also met the little black fat Ned. Others don't know, but he knows clearly that this little black fat man looks ugly, but he is actually a computer expert, a classic configuration teammate of superhero. It might come in handy in the future. It seems unintentional, but in fact, it is intentional to get close to Ned. We're full. Su Zichang, Peter, and Ned put down their knives and forks almost at the same time, and after saying hello, they all rushed upstairs. Aunt May had no choice but to say, boys, run slowly, don't fall. Peter and Della played with building blocks with Su Zichang. It has to be said that the two of them are good at playing with building blocks, and all kinds of tricks emerge in an endless stream, and Su Zichang can't intervene. But because he has no interest in building blocks, Su Zichang just stayed for a while and then went home. Although there is an intention to befriend Ned, but they are pure friends. If it is not enough, Su Zichang can also buy a skill about computers. There is no need to lick a person desperately. For the next few days, Su Zichang stayed at home. The 1-month holiday has passed half a month. While he was considering whether to go back to school, something happened. Tony was rescued. What is Tony's identity? The head, chairman and CEO of Stark, the largest arms company in the United States. After news of her disappearance was reported, almost everyone thought Tony was dead. Some are gloating, some are sad, and some are happy. But no matter which one, there are countless people and countless news agencies paying close attention to him. As soon as he was rescued by the later War Machine Colonel Roddy, the news immediately spread overwhelmingly. Almost as long as they have been on the internet, or looked at their mobile phones, all the citizens of New Moon who have been out of the house know about the resurrection of the playboy Tony Stark. After Su Zichang knew about this, he smiled lightly, seemingly indifferently, but his eyes still shone with excitement. Inevitable. After all, 50 million is finally coming to the account. When Tony got home, the first thing he did was eat 3 double-decker burgers. I've never felt so comfortable at home. Tony drank his glass of wine and let out a sigh of relief. Since Su Zichang came, Tony's game mode has been upgraded from difficulty to hell, and the difficulty has been increased by at least twice. Difficulty obtaining materials, increasing numbers of terrorists. This is what he and Dr. Inson have to face. Thinking of Dr. Inson, Tony finally showed a trace of sadness on his unruly face. As in the movie, Dr. Inson stalled for time alone in order to allow Tony to escape successfully, and finally led to being sifted into a sieve. Tony didn't blame Su Zichang, because he knew that Dr. Yingson might have already made this preparation before Su Zichang came. The only one he blamed was himself. Why wasn't Su Zichang hired then? What an elm brain. However, after this crisis, Tony also understood a lot. During the long period of being trapped here, he witnessed terrorists using the weapons produced by Stark to attack civilians, which caused him a strong visual impact. So, the second thing I did when I returned to the company was to hold a press conference. There are 2 reasons for holding a press conference. One is to announce to some unruly people that Tony Stark is back. Second, it announced the closure of Stark's arms manufacturing department and the cessation of research and production of weapons. The previous point is nothing, but the latter point caused an uproar, a real uproar. It even caused the entire New Moon and Stark group to be in turmoil. What is the Stark group? Arms group. A group that has connections with the United States military. The company has the highest profit, and the largest proportion is the arms manufacturing department. With this closure, the market value of the Stark group will inevitably drop gradually, and this is also the case. The day after the announcement of the closure of the arms department, the Stark group's stock plummeted 60 points. But Tony didn't care at all. There are so many soldiers and civilians who are caught in the middle of a horrible war every day, and the weapons of mass destruction produced by Stark Industries will cause countless deaths every day. Maybe he can make money from weapons without caring, but after seeing that miserable scene with his own eyes, ask himself, is it really worth it? The answer is no. Closing the department was, in his view, a must. Definitely, it's the next day. After hastily finishing the press conference, Tony immediately found a crumpled note, copied the bank card number on it, and handed it to Xiaojiao. Transfer 50 million to this account. Pepper is almost 100% obedient to Tony, who just came back from the Middle East. Although he wanted to ask something, but seeing Tony still eating hamburgers, he was ready to withdraw and transfer money. However, before he walked away, Tony took a bite of the hamburger and continued vaguely, by the way, check the owner of this bank card. If it is a beautiful woman, I think I will be very happy. Pepper has only 2 hee about this. Investigating bank card numbers was an impromptu decision by Tony. If it's done quietly, it shouldn't be discovered by that person, right? Half an hour later, Pepper came to Tony with a stack of documents with a strange expression on his face. Here. Didn't you say that you won't deal with the group's affairs these few days? Tony waved his hand. He was eating steak. The time was too hard. He felt that he needed to rest for a few days to eat and have fun. This is what you asked me to investigate just now. Little Pepper still looks weird. Tony froze for a moment, picked it up curiously, and then saw one photo after another. Rao was stunned because of his super high IQ. What's the situation? Xiaojiao replied. This bank card number is unusual, and the people detected are different every time. These are the people detected just a while ago. Tony was sluggish. Because he actually saw him in these photos, even Little Pepper, the driver Happy, was inside. Depend on. Maybe there are no bounty hunters, or maybe everyone is a bounty hunter. Once the news of the closure of the Weapons Research and Development Department was released, some people were happy and others were worried. The happy one was the hostile company, and the worry. Naturally it was Obadiah and other shareholders. Group interests are their interests. Tony's move was basically messing with their lifeblood. But no matter what, the Stark group is Tony's voice, and they can't force Tony not to change anything. However, there are policies and countermeasures. Obadiah is not a vegetarian either. Half an hour ago, Su Zichang watched the live news on the TV. It was Tony, who had just been rescued, announcing the closure of the Weapon Research and Development Department. Even though he was prepared and knew the plot, Su Zichang couldn't help but smack his tongue slightly. An arms company shutting down its weapon research and development department is equivalent to cutting off its own hands for those who play with guns. Ask yourself, if it was him, he would definitely not be able to give up such a large profit. At most, he would be stricter when the weapons flowed out. This guy Tony looks like an unruly playboy, but he is more ruthless than anyone else. After all, being ruthless to others is not ruthless, but being ruthless to oneself is really ruthless. Anyway, Su Zichang said that he would not be able to be ruthless in his life. Turn off the TV. Su Zichang breathed a sigh of relief. Getting ready to take a shower. The phone received a message. There is no specific content, but it probably means that the account is 50 million knives. Tony is awesome, he transferred the money not long after he got home. The bank card that Su Zichang gave Tony was his own bank card. With the system in place, he is not afraid to investigate at all, okay? 50 million has finally arrived. Su Zichang originally thought that he would be very excited. But now I find that, in fact, that is the case. 50 million is just a line of numbers. Su Zichang is just like entering the Sage mode, definitely. After opening the system store, he broke his power instantly. The funds column in the system mall. F*K, with so many zeros, how many things can you buy? Although 50 million is still too little compared to the tens of trillions of infinite gems, if you only buy some abilities, it is definitely more than enough. Fire ability, LV.1. The price is 100,000. It can manipulate flames for a short time. If you use it too much, you will fall into a state of mental exhaustion. After LV.3, you can mobilize air elements to create flames. Water system ability, LV.1. The price is 100,000. It can manipulate the water flow for a short time. If you use it too much, you will fall into a state of mental exhaustion. After LV.3, you can mobilize the air element to create water flow. Mind reading. The price is 100,000 yuan. It can read the minds of others. There is no level, and the host can read the minds of the strong ones of that level no matter how strong the host is. Sharingan, LV.1. Priced at 100,000, insight eyes, can see clearly the context, see through all the subtle movements of the opponent, and hypnotic ability eyes, use illusion to control opponents, LV.3 evolved into a kaleidoscope. See-through eye. The price is 7 million. It can see through everything. There is no level. The stronger the host, the stronger the see-through eye. Wall penetration. The price is 100,000, teleportation, price ***. The things in the system mall are really dazzling. As Su Zichang watched, his excitement calmed down. Ordinary things are useless to him now. The things that are useful to him are hundreds of thousands of millions at every turn. 50 million seems like a lot, but in fact it can't buy many things at all. It's better to break $1 into 2 and spend it. After a moment of excitement, Su Zichang calmed down completely. The 50 million has to be carefully considered and used. Instantly move 500 million, direct pass, really can't afford it. Sharingan is also pass. In this world, Sharingan is not yet ranked, unless it is Samsara or Juguyu Sharingan, it can be ranked in Marvel. The fire and water abilities are only LV.1, and they need to be upgraded, so put them aside for the time being. Wall penetration and clairvoyance should also be passed first. The last is mind reading, 10 million knives. Expensive is expensive, but it is indeed very useful, the first choice. However, before buying something, it is best to improve what you currently have. Ability. Expensive essence is not expensive. 100 LV.1 ability owners may be able to kill a LV.2 existence, but what about LV.3? Let alone 100, even if you have 1,000 abilities, as long as it is LV.1, it is useless. Some things cannot be won by quantity. Host, Su Zichang. Physical fitness. 600 level. D ability, absolute hit LV.1, fighting technique. Equipment. White snake bow. Fighting technique is a skill that can be bought once and for all, so it can be put aside, even if there are tens of billions or hundreds of billions of orders in the future, it has nothing to do with it. The one who needs the upgrade the most is absolute hit. Absolute hit is currently LV.1, which still belongs to the boundaries of mortals. Now Marvel can use it in the early stage, but it may be weak in the later stage. Click upgrade now. Absolute hit LV.1, required for upgrade. Su Zichang scratched his head. It actually cost $1 million to upgrade from LV.1 to LV.2. It seems that he was too young to think that $300,000 would be enough to upgrade. He originally thought that it would cost 100,000 to buy, but it should be several hundred thousand for the upgrade, right? Now it looks like it has doubled tenfold, and the upgrade costs $1 million? It seems that it is correct not to buy the fire ability. Although it is not clear whether every ability upgrade is so exaggerated, it will definitely not be low. However, if 10 million is 10 million, upgrade is a must. Su Zichang clicked upgrade after a moment of emotion. Absolute hit LV.2, required for upgrade. Yes, multiply by 10 again, and evolve from 1 million to 10 million. What is the concept of absolute hit LV.2? It has been explained above. After Su Zichang upgraded absolute hit to LV.2, he picked up a pen on the table next to him. Then flicked it lightly. The pen shot through the air at an extremely slow speed. It travels about a few centimeters in 1 second. Just like in outer space, slowly shoot towards the target Su Zichang is aiming at. This is absolute hit LV.2, the supernatural power. As long as the power is emitted by Su Zichang, no matter the power file size, as long as it is launched, it will hit the target regardless of anything. At this stage, it is not limited to the sight. It's time. Definitely, if the force bearer is fatally hit, it will be interrupted. Looking at the pen in front of him like a snail crawling. Su Zichang flicked the pen. Pada, suddenly, without any accident, the pen fell off. This stage is already very awesome, but not enough. Su Zichang shook his head. It's just LV.2, it still feels like something is missing. Go ahead and upgrade. It takes 10 million to upgrade from LV.2 to LV.3, which is quite expensive, but he can still afford it. Absolute hit LV.3, required for upgrade. LV.3 to LV.4 need 1 billion. This is no longer tenfold, but a full 100 times. But Su Zichang didn't know it yet. He was immersed in the mystery of absolute hit LV.3 and couldn't extricate himself. And, even if you saw it, you probably wouldn't be surprised. Because the absolute hit LV.3 is too exaggerated. Who knows what the next level of LV.4 will look like? Is it to the extent that people can imagine? That level is no longer measurable by money. Oh no, even the absolute hit of LV.1 is not measurable by money. It can only be said that the bounty hunter is awesome. LV.3, it's 2F** king strong. Su Zichang let out a foul breath, couldn't help but swear, and the look of shock remained in his eyes. Definitely hit this ability. Each level is another concept. In fact, LV.3 just adds a setting to the concept of LV.2. As long as the power is emitted by Su Zichang, no matter the power file size, as long as it is launched, it will hit the target regardless of anything. Here comes the key point. When it reaches LV.3, even if the carrying object of force suffers a fatal blow, for example, an arrow, if it receives a fatal blow at LV.2, it will fall directly to the ground. But LV.3 can't, even if it is split into 2 halves, 3 petals, 4 petals, 5 petals. Unless it is directly annihilated, no matter how small it is, it will still launch towards the target. And hit him. Definitely, this has something to do with strength. If it becomes 2 petals, 3 petals, or 4 petals, its power will definitely be weakened. Maybe when it becomes a small one, it will have no attack power. This is also a defect of LV.3 that is not considered a defect. As long as Su Zichang's strength is strong enough and his skills are good enough, even an element can kill a person. Su Zichang shook his head emotionally, and then saw the price needed to upgrade to LV.4. 1 billion. Su Zichang couldn't help clicking his tongue slightly, but the price was within his expectations. If such an ability is traded, let alone a billion, even tens of billions, trillions, will be few, and there must be a lot of people rushing to get it. But don't think that Su Zichang only needs 1 billion, it's easy or something. The premise of this 1 billion is to complete the task. The difficulty is not generally high, otherwise, with his current strength, wouldn't it be nice to rob him? I believe that the rich in New York are willing to pay billions and tens of billions for their lives. Too bad it doesn't exist. Su Zichang glanced at his deposit. It costs a total of 11 million knives to upgrade the absolute hit to LV.3, and the current balance is 39 million. He looked at the bow of the white snake in his backpack. White snake bow. 10,000 needed for strengthening. Compared with the absolute hit, the money needed for the strengthening of the white snake bow is simply a drop in the bucket. Su Zichang tapped 4 times. Plus 1 requires 10,000. Plus 2 requires 50,000. Plus 3 requires 100,000. Plus 4 requires 200,000. Plus 5 requires 500,000. Calculated in this way, strengthening the white snake bow 5 times is not cheap, and it cost a total of 860,000 knives. However, to Su Zichang's surprise, some changes seem to have taken place in the bow of the white snake. White snake bow, plus 5. The strengthening reaches plus 5, the attack and defense increases, and the equipment skills are activated. Equipment skills? Su Zichang narrowed his eyes. He thought that the strengthening of equipment should be in terms of defense and attack increase, but he didn't expect there to be so-called equipment skills. Click on it to see that the equipment skill of the white snake bow is called the power of condensing arrows. The power of condensing arrows. It can condense white snake arrows out of thin air, and can condense hundreds of arrows every day, refreshing 24 hours a day. Su Zichang scratched his head. The system saw that a dignified bounty hunter had to buy arrows, so he got this skill for himself? He was slightly disappointed. This skill is useful if it is said to be useful, or if it is useless, it is really not very useful, unless it is what he thought before, giving the white snake bow a whole similarly enchanted arrow. Arrows of ice, arrows of fire, arrows of wind, arrows of poison. As soon as it is pulled apart, the arrows are condensed, and all kinds of lights are lingering on it. Wow, that is really not ordinary cool and stylish. Su Zichang thought he was dreaming. But it seems that the impetus of fantasy prompted him to search carefully in the system mall, and he really found this kind of bow for him. Elemental bow. The price is 5 million. After strengthening to a certain level, elemental arrows can be condensed out of thin air, with various elemental damage. A full 5 million. This kind of super expensive bow comes with the skill of white snake bow plus 5 just after buying it. After strengthening, it can also condense the bow of various elements, which is not too cool. The corners of Su Zichang's mouth twitched. Damn sheepy, he really wants to replace the junk white snake bow with an elemental bow, but wouldn't the money spent on buying and strengthening the white snake bow be wasted? I rely on. It's almost 1 million knives in total, this is really heartbreaking. I just finished strengthening, but when I searched, I found out that there are better bows, which is really difficult. Forget it. Just buy it. Su Zichang gritted his teeth and bought the elemental bow directly. Luxury. Luxury. Not ordinary luxury. Elemental bow. It can gather arrows out of thin air, gather 300 arrows every day, and refresh 24 hours a day. After strengthening reaches a certain level, elemental arrows can be condensed out of thin air, with various elemental damage. Sure enough, it is worthy of a bow with a price of 5 million, and it comes with 300 arrows gathered every day, which is 3 times more than the plus 5 white snake bow. Moreover, the elemental arrows condensed by the elemental bow are used together with the absolute hit LV.3 ability, which can definitely match with unexpected effects, and it is exciting to think about it. Reluctantly soothed Su Zichang's wounded heart. At this stage, the white snake bow can only be said to be barely enough. If you can change to a better bow, you can change it. Anyway, I still have enough money. It's just that the white snake bow that was strengthened to plus 5 just now can only be put aside to eat ashes, and my little heart is aching just thinking about it. In such a short period of time, Su Zichang spent more than 10 million yuan, leaving only 33.14 million yuan in balance. Su Zichang looked at himself in the mirror, and felt that the handsome guy in front of him exuded the rancid smell of capitalism all over his body. The stench was unbearable. But I like it. Su Zichang touched his chin. Continue to tinker in the system mall. There are still more than 30 million yuan that have not been spent. However, in the end, Su Zichang still had no idea what to buy. You can only focus on improving your physical fitness. His current physique is 6 points, which is good against ordinary people, but if it is a guy like Purple Sweet Potato, his strength may not be much worse than that of an ant. Set a small goal, first increase to 10 times that of ordinary people. In terms of buying physical fitness points, the stronger Su Zichang's body is, the more expensive the physical fitness points will be. For example, now, it cost 20,000 to buy 1 point before, but now it costs 50,000. Just buying 4 points of physique cost him 740,000 knives, which just wiped off the odds, leaving 33 million. In addition to buying physique points, Su Zichang also strengthened the elemental bow to plus 5. The original price of the elemental bow is extremely expensive, and the strengthening is naturally much more expensive than the bow of the white snake. It only took hundreds of thousands of knives to strengthen the bow of the white snake to plus 5, but it took a full 3 million to strengthen the bow of the elements to plus 5. Really exaggerated. Su Zichang clicked his tongue and shook his head. But strengthening to plus 5 level is exaggerated, so the absolute value of 3 million is worth it. Elemental bow, plus 5, it can condense arrows out of thin air, condense 500 ordinary arrows and 50 elemental arrows every day, and refresh every 24 hours. 500 ordinary arrows per day, 50 elemental arrows. Su Zichang didn't quite understand the specific elements, probably water, fire, wind, and other fancy things. In short, the effect of this elemental arrow plus the absolute hit of LV.3 will definitely be unexpected. This mall shopping cost Su Zichang a total of 20 million, or USD, which is more than 100 million when converted into soft sister coins. The most exaggerated time spent in this life. However, it is definitely not a loss. Host, Su Zichang. Physical fitness. 10 hunter level. D ability, absolute hit LV.3. Equipment. Hunter set. Elemental bow, +5, white snake bow, +5. Although this panel is not gorgeous, it is definitely out of the category of ordinary people. Even in Avengers, it can be called a top-notch powerhouse. It can also be regarded as having the capital to attack the top powerhouses of the entire Marvel world pyramids. Its ability, and it's still a little bit less. But Su Zichang didn't know what to buy, so he could only throw the 30 million funds aside. Then I decided to go back to school. Although judging from the money and ability he currently has, it doesn't matter whether he goes to school or not. But Su Zichang thinks that going to school can cultivate one's sentiments, and it is also very good to feel the freshness of the students, lest he become a crazy murderer in the future. Anyway, if you want to go, go. If you don't want to go, don't go. In fact, the main reason is that I have stayed at home for too long, and I have played all the entertainment items that should be played. It is a bit boring to be true. It is better to go to school, so that I will not be bored to death. For Su Zichang's return, the teachers are naturally happy. It was only after his return that Su Zichang found out that Tom Holland was beaten up by Peter and expelled from school. In the end, he could only let out a helpless sigh. Tom Holland, you said it's not good to find someone to trouble you with. The little Spider-Man who just gained power and hasn't fully controlled it yet. You're lucky not to blow your head off with one punch. Su Zichang had a few more peaceful days at school. In the past few days, he also spent several million to purchase several skills and items. Host. Su Zichang physical fitness, 10 hunter level, D. Ability. Absolute hit, LV.3, psychometry, LV.2, Hawkeye, LV.2. Equipment. Hunter suit, elemental bow, +5, white snake bow, +5, tracking paper crane, ×5. They are, tracking paper cranes, psychic sensing, and, Hawkeye. Tracking paper cranes, as a consumable item, said to be paper cranes, but it can exist in this world in any form, and it is self-evident for a bounty hunter like Su Zichang who tracks people's heads, so I bought it at once 5. Psychometry and Hawkeye are two skills. The introduction of psychic detection is very troublesome, but in the final analysis, it is a seemingly useless perception skill. It is said to be telescopic, but it is not other people who sense it, but he uses his mind to sense it. Probably the use is to feel it carefully after opening it. Su Zichang can roughly know the degree of danger near where he is, as well as the enemy. Definitely, the telepathy range of LV.1 is 100 meters. Even if the enemy is detected, it is difficult to perceive the equipment on them, which is useless, so Su Zichang directly raised the telepathy to LV.2. The range of LV.2 is even more terrifying, reaching the level of kilometers, but correspondingly, the farther away, the more blurred the perception. There is also Hawkeye. This Hawkeye is not the Hawkeye in Avengers, but the real Hawkeye, with powerful and terrifying eyesight and a wide field of vision. It has not reached the point where it goes up to the heavens and down to the 9 seclusions, but after reaching LV.2, there will be a qualitative change, and you can even drag your vision to the sky in a small area, looking down on everything from the perspective of God. Hawkeye seems to be in conflict with psychic sensing, but it is not. The places where the two can be used are completely opposite. Hawkeye is more inclined to frontal attack, while psychic sensing as a latent assassination type, and it is also very useful in daily life. It can be turned on at any time, and beware of the surroundings at any time. The slightest movement can be detected quickly, and once there is danger, there will be a very big reaction, which is a little more delicate than Hawkeye. Which is the main reason why he bought psychic sensing. Don't ask. I bought this skill because I was afraid of death. If Su Zichang stepped into the bounty hunter industry, he was destined to provoke countless enemies. Like Tony's mission, if Tony is really killed by him, then there will probably be one more shield on his list of enemies. It was inevitable that his identity would be exposed, and it was also inevitable that he would be targeted. Buying psychic sensing as Su Zichang's last layer of protection for himself, lest he die without knowing how he died. All in all, for Su Zichang whose current weapon is a bow, these two skills are very useful. Tracking paper cranes. 1 requires 50,000, and 5 is 250,000. Hawkeye. It costs 100,000 to buy, and 1 million to upgrade. Psychometry. 10,000 is required to purchase, and 1 million to upgrade. A total of 2.27 million was spent shopping in the mall this time. Su Zichang only thinks that after getting Hawkeye, it will be more handy to use the absolute hit LV.3 mixed with elemental bow. As long as there is no obstacle, 1,000 meters at a glance is not a dream. It's just that I haven't used it much these days, and I've been hanging around with Peter all day, making Su Zichang's hands a little itchy. What Su Zichang didn't know was, Peter has been feeling weird lately. He finds that his spider telepathy is not out of control is random, but his spider telepathy is not. In the past few days, Su Zichang has made Peter feel more and more dangerous, has reached a peak. As long as he gets close to Su Zichang, he can feel a horror like an abyss. Constantly urged Peter to leave Su Zichang. Is it the advantage avoiding nature of organisms? However, in the end, spider telepathy simply did not give him a warning. It seems that it is because he has no resistance to Su Zichang. In this regard, Peter could only scratch his head mindlessly, hiding his doubts deeply in his heart and not touching them. Peter is a little naive, he doesn't think Su Zichang will hurt him. In short, in the past few days, little Spider-Man Peter has also witnessed the growth of Su Zichang's strength, and the span is not usually large. It has been a week since the 50 million was obtained. In this week, apart from the news released by the press conference at that time, Tony unexpectedly did not have any lace news. It's so honest that I can't be more honest. But Su Zichang understood that after Tony disappeared for a while, he might reappear in the form of Iron Man. During this time, Su Zichang's hands were really itchy. Having obtained so many abilities, it always feels a little uncomfortable not to use them well. So, he decided, get out, keep making money. Su Zichang is not the kind of person who will continue to earn after the money is spent. No one thinks too much of money. Especially for a bounty hunter like Su Zichang, who has advanced to improve his strength, he has no problem saying that money is his life. But it wasn't long before I took a leave of absence last time. It is obviously impossible for Su Zichang to ask the teacher for leave again. So, Su Zichang went directly past the teacher this time and found the principal. And said that he would donate a building to the school. Don't look at the use of more than 20 million USD, but in terms of cash, the 50 million USD is still safely stored in the bank card. After Su Zichang said that he donated buildings to the school and showed his financial resources, the white-bearded principal who was originally upright, majestic, and unsmiling suddenly became a people-friendly, little old man. Sure enough, money is everything in a capitalist country. Su Zichang was slightly emotional. He had already asked for leave just now, and when he asked for leave, the little old man also said that it doesn't matter if he comes or not, he can come and leave whenever he wants, he is very free. Money is not something that is generally useful. Su Zichang also felt the convenience brought by small money for the first time. Nighttime. Putting on a hunter suit, carrying a simple and handsome elemental bow and a quiver with a few ordinary arrows, Su Zichang is like a shadow, wandering in the shadows, and quietly came to the last time. The trading place of the underground world. The task of killing Tony and getting Tony's head is still high on the task list. However, it was still the same, no one answered except Su Zichang last time. After all, Tony is not an ordinary rich man. He has connections with the military, and now this group of people can still exist here to drink and have fun. It is all based on the premise that the military doesn't care about them. The United States is a powerful country after all. If they are really serious about them, a few agents are enough for them to drink a pot. Therefore, no one will touch the taboo of Tony. However, to Su Zichang's surprise, there is actually a task on the task list that ranks first with Tony's task. Hunting shape-shifting monsters. The bounty is 10 million. Su Zichang narrowed his eyes slightly. Shape-shifting blame? He suddenly thought of an American drama he had watched. It just so happened that the bounty for this task was quite a lot, which was very in line with Su Zichang's requirements, so he directly chose to accept this task. However, when he was about to take over the task, something unexpected happened. Brother, are you here? Did Tony kill it? A burly BL*CKM*N who was drinking wine suddenly taunted Su Zichang. With a sarcastic smile on his face, he raised the glass in his hand to Su Zichang. As soon as he said this, everyone around him laughed mockingly at the same time. Su Zichang recognized him. This guy was one of the people who taunted him when he received the task of hunting Tony that day. A dangerous gleam flashed in Su Zichang's eyes. Brother. The BL*CKM*N didn't realize that he was being watched by Su Zichang. He casually walked up to Su Zichang's side, wanting to reach out and hook Su Zichang's shoulder. Don't overestimate your capabilities. Like Lao Su, I usually only accept a few million tasks. Why are you so ambitious when you come up with tens of millions? The BL*CKM*N's muscular right arm accelerated sharply, obviously wanting to teach Su Zichang, a newcomer who is overconfident, a lesson. Seeing this scene, the others didn't intend to stop them at all, but started booing instead. After all, it is an underground trading place, where fish and dragons are mixed, and fights are common. Next time I have to find a hunter website, it's not a problem to always come to this kind of offline. Su Zichang sighed softly in his heart, and with a strong left hand, he slapped the black ghost away. Caught off guard, coupled with the powerful force of Su Zichang, this muscular BL*CKMN with a saber and gun tied around his feet and waist was instantly slapped flying like a piece of paper, and hit the person behind him with a pong sound on the bar. The wine bottles were smashed, and the excited screams of others made this bar-like underground trading place even more chaotic. The BL*CKMN felt dizzy and dazed for a while, but the sharp pain of hitting the bar behind him brought him back to his senses in an instant. King Court Death. A trace of bloodthirsty flashed in his eyes, he roared viciously, and was about to reach out for the knife. It's not bad that underground trading places are chaotic. Fights are common, but there is a rule not to touch. That means no firearms. Everyone consciously abides by it. It's not that the owner of this underground trading place is so intimidating, it's mainly because this place is inherently shady, and the guns are loud, which easily attracts the attention of others. It's okay if you don't call the police, but if you call the police and find guns and other things, everyone will die. The owner of an underground trading place is naturally not afraid of the police if he can set up this kind of place in this kind of place, but he doesn't want to build a famous place with great difficulty and just disappear like this. This is one of them. The second is that even if you don't use firearms, even if you call the police, it is not easy to be investigated. It can only be regarded as an ordinary bar fight, and the police don't bother to care. And apart from not being able to use firearms, there are no extra rules. Even if you kill people here, someone will make arrangements for you. When the rest of the people saw that the black ghost had drawn out a knife, they all became more excited and howled continuously. Definitely, the majority support BL*CKM*N. Get rid of him. Shet. Blackie. Kill him. And his blood. Bitch. Fuck. Most people who are able to do this line of work are a little bit sick, advocating blood and having sex are all normal. Su Zichang was a little annoyed by the noise. Damn, you should ask the system if there is any website, you can come across any kind of fly when you come to this kind of place. Seeing Su Zichang standing still, the black ghost, coupled with the tingling sensation behind him, immediately aroused blood in his heart, holding the knife in his right hand, and wanted to attack Su Zichang immediately. However, Su Zichang raised his head slightly and glanced at the black ghost. Quickly took out the bow of elements from behind, and took out 3 most common arrows from the quiver. 3 together, string and draw the bow. Rub. 3 white lights flashed. 3 extremely sharp arrows instantly penetrated the black ghost's left hand, right hand and forehead. The incomparably strong force even took the black ghost's body and nailed it to the wall of the bar behind him. Red and white flowed from the BL*CKM*N's forehead. Being nailed to the wall by arrows, his pupils were wide open, as if he didn't understand why he was so fragile until he died. It's a long story. In reality, it just happened in an instant. After shooting those 3 arrows, Su Zichang walked away calmly, didn't give the black ghost a second look, and didn't care about the uproar caused here. Killing BL*CKMN seemed to him like a waste of time to even think about it. Moreover, what can be more important than making money? If you have time to take on a few more tasks and earn him 180 million, just ask if you are good. Go to task management. The task management office is used to know the details of the task and notify the task rewarder. The contact information is here. The person in charge of the task management office also saw the scene of Su Zichang showing off his power just now, and now he is a little afraid to look at him. It's fast to get the mission information. This quest is different from the quest to hunt down Tony. Hunting and killing shapeshifting monsters, the task bounty hunter is famous. Su Zichang also saw information about hunting shapeshifting monsters from an A4 paper. Location, Beacon Hill, Boston, the United States. Mission description. Hunt down a lizard shapeshifting monster in Beacon Hill. The mission description indicated that an ugly human-shaped lizard monster recently appeared in Beacon Mountain. It has great power, extremely fast speed, and its tail can inject neurotoxins into people, which can anesthetize others. In addition to the location and task description, there is also a contact method. Definitely, there is no name, only one contact method. To be honest, if it wasn't for the mission that Su Zichang took over, I would definitely think that the person who posted the mission was either a fool with a lot of money or cerebral palsy. This word is a fantasy and a false thing in the eyes of many people. However, Su Zichang is different. After seeing the location of Beacon Hill, he finally confirmed his previous thoughts. It really is that drama. Teen Wolf. There may be a little difference in some details, but in general, it should not be much different. The Marvel world is actually mixed with the werewolf world view. Su Zichang narrowed his eyes slightly. I have accepted this task. After finishing speaking, he took the information and left the underground trading place. The person in the task management office opened his mouth, as if he wanted to say something, but in the end he didn't dare to say it. He only dared to mutter in his heart, "Boss, there is no copy of the piece of paper you took away." Of course, Su Zichang was unaware of this. But even if he knew, he wouldn't react, because he was confident in completing the task. At any rate, people who have watched the show know what the shape-shifting monster is and who made it, and know that this thing looks very strong, but it definitely has no chance of winning against him. If there is no accident, this task can be completed in about half a day, not counting the time to go to Beacon Mountain. Beacon Hill is located in Boston. It is about 300 kilometers away from New York, 4 hours by car, 3 hours by train, and even faster by plane, which takes 50 minutes. However, Beacon Hill is in the suburbs of Boston, and there is no direct air ticket. It is estimated that it will take a long time to travel by car. Even if you take a plane, it will take at least 2 hours to get to Beacon Hill. To be honest, it is very troublesome. But Su Zichang said that as long as there is money and troubles, the problem will be resolved. However, it is obviously too late to start now. In the early hours of the morning, let alone no car, there is no time to book a plane ticket. Moreover, even if he could reach Beacon Hill, it would be daytime, and he didn't want to waste time there. After all, Su Zichang's identity is a bounty hunter. If you insist on counting people who belong to the chaotic neutral camp, if it is not necessary, neither the good nor the evil will do anything to him, and they will even give help or ask for help. But the bounty hunter is a shady profession after all. This time I went to Beacon Hill to kill people, not to play. Picking a good time will get twice the result with half the effort. As for when is the good time? It was naturally a dark and windy night, a day of murder and arson. Su Zichang booked a flight ticket to Boston at 6:20 p.m. tomorrow, arrived at the place at 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock, and then checked the surrounding situation. He could act at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock. This set of wishful thinking Su Zichang made a crackling sound. When I got home, I had a good sleep. Exercise as usual during the day. At 6:20 p.m., Su Zichang successfully boarded the plane to Boston without any delay. After 50 minutes, disembark. Su Zichang looked around curiously, just like a tourist who is curious about Boston. Pulled over a car and said he was going to Beacon Hill. Although the driver didn't seem to want to drive a long-distance car, Su Zichang's money offensive was too ruthless, and he probably didn't have to start work for half a month after driving this time. Under this extreme temptation, the driver master couldn't stand it at all, so he agreed to Su Zichang. Stinks capitalism. Su Zichang curled his lips and looked at the scenery outside the window. The car has gradually left the urban area, and the surrounding people and buildings have gradually decreased, replaced by rural scenery. The idyllic scenery of the United States is obviously different from what Su Zichang has seen before. They are two styles. So Su Zichang is quite curious. This time he is not pretending, but really curious. However, the most indispensable thing in the countryside in the suburbs of the United States is the pastoral scenery, which makes you tired of looking at it. It's kind of boring to be true. Su Zichang shook his head and was about to close his eyes and meditate. But at this moment, the phone rang suddenly. Su Zichang took out his mobile phone and looked at it, his eyes narrowed slightly. It was an unfamiliar call, and he didn't make a note. But with his memory, he could recognize that this was the mobile phone number of the person who issued the hunting shape-shifting monster mission. What is he calling for? With this doubt in his heart, Su Zichang connected the phone. After connecting, there was a heavy panting sound from the other side of the phone. That person has either experienced a big battle now, or is now in the middle of a big battle. Bounty hunter? His thick and deep voice sounded. Su Zichang lowered his voice. Yes. Where are you now? He continued to ask, looking a little hurried. On the way. Su Zichang narrowed his eyes slightly. It was obvious that something had happened. How long will it take? He seemed slightly relieved, but he was still panting. Half an hour. Su Zichang lied. If the driver drives at the current speed, it will only take half an hour to reach Beacon Hill, but if he speeds up, 10 minutes will be enough. Directly to the Beacon Hill police station in half an hour. His voice suddenly became weaker. If you don't arrive within half an hour, I'm afraid no one will give you the 10 million, and I have to trouble you to collect my body for me. After saying this, he hung up the phone. Has the identity of the lizard monster been investigated and is now raging in the police station? The protagonist group is struggling to support? Help? Su Zichang slowly took the phone off his ear, thinking slightly in his heart. Master driver, please speed up. This is already the fastest, if it is faster. On the basis of just now, I will pay double. Okay, sir, sit down. The old driver is about to start racing. The old driver is different when he starts the car. Moreover, the driver was quite restrained in the first half, but he seemed to let himself go in the second half, and the speed was getting faster and faster. The original half-hour journey forced him to drive to the place in 10 minutes. If it weren't for Su Zichang's high physical fitness, he might have been so frightened that he felt dizzy and wanted to vomit on the spot. In the end, Su Zichang can only sigh with emotion. The master is among the people, and the master is among the people. Beacon Hill is not big, about the size of a town. However, although the Sparrow is small and complete, there are hospitals and police stations. This time it happened at the Beacon Hill police station. Su Zichang put on the hunter suit and turned on the Hawkeye skill, and the perspective of the whole person changed instantly, just like an eagle with sharp eyes. Find the location of the Beacon Hill police station from the perspective of God. Look away. Su Zichang sneaked into the darkness and headed towards the Beacon Hill police station. By the time they were about to arrive at the Beacon Hill police station, it was almost 10 o'clock. Beacon Hill is considered a rural area. There are no entertainment activities, at most they just stay at home and play games, but it is truly uninhabited outside. But just to be on the safe side, when Su Zichang arrived near the police station, he still turned on psychic sensing. Immediately afterwards, he instantly sensed many situations inside and outside the Beacon Hill police station. Inside the Beacon Hill police station, full of blood and gunpowder smell. Among them, the female police detective who was watching the night was dead, and there were several deep and long scratches on her chest, which were fatal to her heart. And the gun pouch at the waist was not open. Obviously, she didn't even have time to resist when she was dying. Go further inside the office. A humanoid lizard monster with scales all over its body, 4 limbs on the ground, and a slender tail was blocking the doorway, staring at the 3 people in the room. The 3 are Scott, Styles, and Styles' father who has passed out. Scott and Styles looked at each other, seeing the meaning in each other's eyes. Roar. Scott roared, and his whole body suddenly changed. Thick hair grew on his face, his eyes shone with yellow light, and he had a lot of fangs and claws. He is a werewolf. After transforming, the lizard monster directly attacked. Scott was a werewolf after all, but he was like a puppy under the lizard monster's hands, powerless to resist. After a few paws down, Scott managed to dodge with difficulty. There was not much physical damage, but his clothes were torn and he looked in a mess. As for Styles next to him, he found an opportunity to escape, because he had other things to do. The lizard monster was able to stir up such a bloodbath on Beacon Mountain. Of course, it was not for nothing. Even if Scott exploded again, he was easily taken down. He injected neurotoxin into the little werewolf with his tail to make him unconscious, and then handcuffed him in prison. Su Zichang, who had turned on telepathy, could already feel that the physical fitness of this lizard monster should be about the same as his, about 10 times that of ordinary people. That werewolf is not that good. Transforming into a werewolf is only 4 times that of ordinary people. At most, the sense of smell, feeling, fangs and claws are a little more terrifying than ordinary people. It can't make up for the gap of 6, let alone a lizard. The monster's tail also contains neurotoxins. If it wasn't for the fact that the lizard monster didn't seem to have the intention of killing the werewolf would probably fall to the ground within 1 round. And just like that, the Beacon Hill Police Department nearly fell. After all, it was very late, and there were not many police officers on duty. The mysterious lizard monster easily killed 7 people in and out of the Beacon Hill Police Station. At the moment, outside the Beacon Hill Police Station, in the dark, a man wearing a black hooded windbreaker, who seemed to be one with the darkness, silently looked at the Beacon Hill Police Station not far away. You came. Beside him was a handsome middle-aged man in a shirt with a beard, his hands in his pockets, and he was also looking at Beacon Mountain not far away. Can it be solved? He asked. If it can't be resolved, it won't come. Su Zichang turned on Hawkeye and glanced at the middle-aged man Pete. And it was this look that made Pete feel cold all over his body. A blue light flashed in his eyes, and he almost couldn't help showing his original shape. He took a deep look at Pete. Be ready for 10 million. Su Zichang slowly stepped out of the darkness and walked towards the Beacon Hill police station. He didn't know why Pete paid 10 million to hunt the shapeshifting monster. But it doesn't matter who Pete is, it only needs to know his name or even his code name. For him, all he needs to do is to complete the task and get money. Other things have nothing to do with him. Be careful. That lizard monster is controlled by someone. Seeing that Su Zichang finally left, Pete heaved a sigh of relief. Staying with Su Zichang felt like a crisis all the time. No one likes standing next to someone who could kill him at any time. I didn't expect that the task I sent out casually would attract such a guy. Pete regretted it a little. But what's the use of regretting? People have already been attracted. Su Zichang stepped into the Beacon Hill police station through the main entrance. As soon as he entered, he saw the body of the female police detective lying on his back, with the extremely bloody wound facing the door. But because of the telepathy, Su Zichang didn't mean to be surprised. Standing in front of the corpse, Su Zichang narrowed his eyes slightly. Telepathy made the situation of the entire Beacon Hill police station imprinted in his mind. Therefore, without any hindrance, and without looking around at all, Su Zichang walked directly towards the temporary prison. The lizard monster was guarding the prison door, while the werewolves Scott and Styles were both chained inside, comatose. Su Zichang has no interest in anything else. It has nothing to do with him being controlled by the lizard monster. His task is to hunt the lizard monster. Then it is enough to throw the head of the lizard monster in front of Pete, and let others have a headache for the rest. Bounty hunters are not babysitters who fall into a pit for a quest. Beacon Hill Police Department is not big. In less than 10 seconds, Su Zichang saw a slightly disgusting lizard monster lying on all fours, with a long tongue sticking out, drooling, teeth like jagged. This lizard monster looks really ugly. Su Zichang looked curiously. This was the first time he had seen a supernatural creature, and the tied werewolf. And the lizard monster also found Su Zichang. It looked a little confused. Su Zichang naturally knew what the lizard monster was wondering about, wondering why he didn't smell him. One of the advantages of the hunter suit is this. It can perfectly hide its own smell. For the kind of creature or person whose eyes are not good and depends entirely on taste, it is simply heavenly. However, doubts quickly disappeared. With a roar, the lizard monster really moved all fours like a beast, jumped on the left and right walls of the corridor, and attacked Su Zichang. It has no reason, only knows the order given to him by the master, which is to kill, guard all the people who appear in the Beacon Hill police station. Su Zichang is also on this list. Facing the extremely swift attack of the lizard monster, Su Zichang took out the elemental bow. Instead of concentrating the arrows, he used the elemental bow originally as a weapon, and attacked 4 limbs of the lizard monster that was rushing towards him. The human-shaped lizard monster flew upside down in an instant, roared, and an incomparably strong stench and bloody smell gushed out. Lizard monsters are not intelligent people after all, and their attacks completely follow their instincts. Just like Beast, they have no rules and don't know how to use their own advantages. Facing a successful fighter like Su Zichang, lizard monsters can't do anything effective at all. Damage. But if you insist, the physical fitness of the lizard monster is still similar to that of Su Zichang. Therefore, Su Zichang's hands were slightly numb due to the shock force of these few blows. The battle of one man and one lizard also woke up Scott and Styles in the room. Scott opened his eyes in a daze, and then his expression was slightly shocked. Roar. With a roar, he transformed into a werewolf and broke free from the handcuffs on his hands. He sensed that someone was fighting the lizard monster. Just like that, the dumb little werewolf broke into the battle. Su Zichang glanced at the little werewolf with interest. Well, it was worth coming to the Beacon Hill police station this time, the lizard monster, the little werewolf, all of them. But now is not the time to study these. Seeing his hands and the tail swaying slightly, Su Zichang shook his head as he looked at the lizard monster that was about to launch the next attack. Originally, he simply used fighting and lizard monsters to hone his actual combat experience. Now think about it or forget it. Fighting Beast is not interesting at all. Facing the lizard monster attacking again, Su Zichang drew the bow of the elements this time. In Scott's shocked gaze, a faint silvery white color lingered on its strings. As Su Zichang fully drew the bowstring, a black arrow turned from empty to solid and was caught between 2 fingers. And under Scott's keen and inconceivable gaze, the black arrow's arrowhead is entangled with a terrifying gray mist, which makes the hairs on the werewolf's body stand up with his keen perception, and he can't wait to leave immediately. This bloody place. Su Zichang let go of his fingers. Whoosh. A tearing air sound rang out. The poison arrow, condensed from the elemental bow, directly penetrated the lizard monster's heart. With a plop, the lizard monster fell to the ground. Jackson. Scott let out an incredulous growl. And after the lizard monster fell to the ground, it finally slowly changed back to its original appearance. This is a white teenager named Jackson. Jackson lay on his back on the ground, his eyes wide open, and an elemental arrow pierced straight into his heart. Until his death, Jackson probably didn't know how he died. The blood he bled was all black blood, and when it touched the ground, it would be corroded like sulfuric acid, making a sizzling sound. One can imagine how poisonous this poisonous arrow is. Scott's eyes were full of disbelief. Definitely, before that, he already knew that this lizard monster was his friend, Jackson. What he didn't expect was that Jackson died like this. Su Zichang ignored Scott, but went straight to Jackson's body and drew a small knife from his waist. Scott was startled. What are you going to do? Su Zichang glanced at Scott blankly. It has nothing to do with you. Immediately afterwards, under Scott's gaze, he swung a knife, chopped off Jackson's head, held it in his hand, and was about to leave. And at the moment, Scott reacted suddenly, roared, his eyes were full of anger, and howled like a wolf. Someone controlled him. It's not his fault, you shouldn't have killed him. In his opinion, there are other ways to cure Jackson. The hunter and assassin in front of him is the murderer. Shouldn't you kill him? Su Zichang was slightly taken aback, then stopped in his tracks, with a strange look on his face. To be honest, when watching the drama, he felt that Scott's character was too naive, and he was actually ready to win the war, without blood. Now he even said the words, shouldn't kill him, to a character he couldn't resist at all. This is really not a character that can be described by the word stupid. Is it the person he killed voluntarily? Does it have anything to do with me? I'm just a hunter for money. Su Zichang sighed, facing the rushing Scott, as if feeling sad for his overreaching. He slapped the bow casually, and the power 10 times that of ordinary people burst out suddenly. Scott, who had no point of focus in the air, was shot flying in an instant. With a scream, he slammed into the wall hard, leaving a human-shaped mark on the wall. He has no interest in Scott. Even if he has watched the original drama, he knows that Jackson is indeed controlled by others, and he has no intention of learning more about it. So what if you know? So what if you don't know? It has nothing to do with him. He's just a bounty hunter who doesn't have any feelings. Will he get half a dime of the bounty if he finds out the people behind him? It doesn't. If it wasn't for the money, he wouldn't be bothered to come here. These werewolves fight almost entirely by instinct. They move straight forward with no skill at all. They are so stupid that they can't be more stupid. Not to mention that his strength is higher than them, but he is weaker than them. Su Zichang can fight with all fighting techniques, so they can't find the north. And Scott passed out directly under such a heavy blow. He fell next to Jackson's headless body. Su Zichang held the head of the shape-shifting monster, Jackson, quite emotional. This mission has been going on and on for a long time. Already got the shape-shifting monster's head less than 5 minutes after almost getting there. 10 million is simply not too easy. Su Zichang felt a little floating. Wrong. He shook his head, he couldn't float. There are countless bosses in the Marvel world, Thor and the Green Fat Man, 2 ruthless characters he hasn't seen before, maybe who will win in a fight. If you really want to float, you will get a slap to destroy the universe, and then float again. Well, in order to be able to float, let's become stronger. Su Zichang is full of thoughts like a playwright, but he never forgets the purpose of his career. Carrying his head, he came to the back mountain of the Beacon Hill police station. Throw the head to the ground. The eyes hidden in the darkness looked deeply at Pete, giving Pete a feeling of being seen through from soul to body, which made him extremely uncomfortable. Watched for a while. Su Zichang looked away, turned and left. 10 million will be credited to my account within 3 days. Don't try to renege, or you'll be like him, little werewolf. His voice was pretending to be extremely low and majestic, completely different from his slightly immature appearance. Pete's body trembled slightly, a little unbelievable. How did he know he was a werewolf? Looking at Jackson's head on the ground with glaring eyes, Pete swallowed hard. Under the fear, the blue light in his eyes was even stronger, his teeth were itchy, and the nails on his hands gradually became sharp. Out of shape. This has nothing to do with him. It is entirely an instinct to protect oneself. Because after transforming, he can better protect himself, and his instinct works at this time. In the end, Pete forcibly suppressed this instinct. After all, he didn't want to be an enemy of the mysterious bounty hunter in front of him. How do you know he is a werewolf? Definitely because I have watched the drama myself. However, it was obviously impossible for Su Zichang to tell Pete that. No matter whether he believes it or not, what he can do if he believes it, so what if he doesn't? As a bounty hunter, you must have the style of a bounty hunter. A bounty hunter needs to be like a bounty hunter, just like although he is extremely eager for money, he can't behave like a money fan. Well, he is not a money fan. At most, I like a little more money than ordinary people. Su Zichang left. He took off his hunter suit and found a hotel in Beacon Hill to stay temporarily, planning to leave the next day. Things are big here. After all, police stations are all attacked. This kind of thing is terrifying no matter which country it is in. After all, a police station is the face of a country. But it has nothing to do with him. Let Pete and the others deal with the aftermath. The next morning, just as Su Zichang checked out, he received news that 10 million had been credited. Looking at the time, it looks like the bank has just opened. Pete is really afraid of death. Su Zichang curled his lips, thinking of how Pete was frightened by his intimidation last night. Not intimidating, though. After all, if Pete was really ready to renege, Su Zichang had the confidence to hunt him down to Cape Tiana, chop off his head and hang him on a cross. Tracking origami cranes is not a vegetarian. He booked a flight for 9 o'clock in the morning. It takes about an hour to get from Beacon Hill to the airport. But it's still early, so you can stroll around Beacon Hill and have some breakfast or something. Not long after Su Zichang walked, he heard a group of people gathered together and didn't know what to say. This kind of situation will appear in the evening, but it seems a bit abnormal in the early morning. Has the news about the Beacon Hill Police Department come out? Su Zichang squinted his eyes and didn't say anything. He went to the canteen to buy a bread, spread some jam on it and ate half full, and then left Beacon Hill. Ready to go back to New York. 10 million has already been obtained, and there is nothing worthy of his nostalgia in Beacon Hill. It was past 10 in the morning. Su Zichang finally returned to his home. In his line of work, he will not open for 3 years, and he will suffer for 3 years after opening. He earned 10 million in just one day, a terrifying profit. Another person was killed this time. Su Zichang felt that the more he killed, the easier it was for him to kill, without any sense of guilt. Tut tut. He shook his head. I am quite suitable to be a bounty hunter, at least there will be no pressure on killing people. Su Zichang also did not stay at home for the next few days. Occasionally, I would go to school to play ball with Peter and the others, read books, and cultivate my sentiments. Although he thought it was easy to do the task, Su Zichang set a rule for himself after all, and he had to rest for a few days after completing a task. It is good that he is greedy for money, but there is a limit to everything. Su Zichang understands that he is greedy for money like he is now, but if he is really doing one task after another and doing tasks all the time, it is not greedy for money, but a complete slave to money. During these 10 days, Su Zichang's strength has also improved a lot. Currently his balance is 37.37 million. The last time he fought against the lizard monster, although the battle was easily resolved, Su Zichang also discovered a weakness of his own. That is physique. Originally thought that a constitution of 10 points was enough for him. But now it is found that the NPC monsters with a small task on the side of the road have a constitution of 10 points, which makes Su Zichang feel a sense of crisis. You can feel numb when you hit a lizard monster, but what about the Green Titan and Thor? Well, even if you don't make enemies with them, what about those who hate this kind of people? Isn't their strength dozens of times and hundreds of times that of ordinary people? Especially for a superhero like Green Fatty who is known for his strength, don't be too perverted, okay? Perhaps using absolute hit, Su Zichang could beat them. But as a bounty hunter who wants to last forever, he feels the need to be well-rounded. First of all, it is physique. Su Zichang spent 7.73 million without hesitation to increase his physical fitness point to 30. Immediately afterwards, he also took a fancy to a skill. Vajra Indestructible Body, LV.1. The price is 100,000, and it has a terrifying defense increase. As the level increases, the increase will be higher. This is a physical enhancement skill, and it is a percentage increase. The higher his defense power, the higher the increase, and the level up is the percentage of the increase. Once this skill is activated, nothing can be seen on the surface of the body, but the flesh and blood under the skin, as well as the bones and internal organs inside the body, will be covered with a faint golden layer. Therefore, Su Zichang bought this skill without hesitation and upgraded it to LV.2. Su Zichang felt that once he activates the indestructible body of the diamond, his defense power will rise several times in a straight line. With his current 30 physique, if he wants to cause damage to him, it may be difficult without 90. Live up to the title of King Kong Indestructible Body. Now he has confidence in facing Lei Shendu. As long as that guy doesn't hold a hammer, he probably can't even break his own defense. Although the money is much less, Su Zichang feels comfortable with the explosion. After all, the money was originally used to improve his strength, and now he feels safe when he sleeps. However, the Marvel world will not remain so peaceful forever. On this day, Su Zichang saw Tony Stark at the press conference on TV. Holding the manuscript, he hesitated to speak at first, then stopped to speak, and finally put the manuscript down and looked directly at the camera. I am Iron Man. Has Obadiah been resolved? Tony is worthy of being Tony. The old man Obadiah really has a narrow road. How about he take care of his old age? I like all the bells and whistles, that's right. Subsequently, Su Zichang knew about Tony's subsequent operations. After Tony declared himself Iron Man, wars all over the world almost stopped, because they knew that their military power could not defeat Iron Man. In this way, Tony, with his own strength, actually contributed to a short-lived world peace. And Tony is worthy of the name of a genius. Taking advantage of the limelight, he took advantage of the opportunity to open the Stark Expo. It is also because of him alone that the Stark industry, which was originally a bit sluggish, revived and rose again at an extremely incredible and terrifying speed. He was very strong. But Su Zichang understands that Iron Man also has troubles. At least the current Tony has entered a hurdle. If this hurdle cannot be crossed, then death will be ushered in. Target element poisoning. At present, he can only rely on vegetable juice to slightly slow down the speed of poisoning. Tony also didn't know if he could make it through. There was both sadness and fear. After all, in the face of death, no matter what, he was just an ordinary person. But his character did not allow him to expose his weaknesses to others, so, quietly, Tony began to distribute the inheritance. First of all, he handed over the position of CEO of Stark Industries to Pepper. During this period, Tony also employed a female secretary named Natalie. After knowing all this, Su Zichang turned on the TV. There is a live broadcast of the Moroccan F1 Grand Prix. Everything was going very well originally. The audience around cheered wildly, supporting their favorite racing drivers, and the atmosphere was very enthusiastic. But it happened by accident. A long-haired, bearded middle-aged man wearing overalls and holding a double whip suddenly stepped onto the track. Under the watchful eyes of everyone, the overalls were gradually destroyed by the terrifying energy, and the energy armor on his body was also revealed. Holding the energy double whip, it is full of shocking energy, and the electric light jumps on it. With a slash of the whip, the cars of several unlucky racers were sent flying. As for Tony, he stopped the car. He had a hunch that the whipman was coming for him. Sure enough, after discovering Tony, the whipman began to chase and kill Tony on the field, causing a great commotion. But Tony is a little strong after all, so he insisted until Pepper and the driver Happy came over and handed him the briefcase and portable Mark vs. armor. Under the watchful eyes of others, Tony put on the Mark V and started fighting with the whipman. Facing a fairly strong opponent like the whipman who also used high-tech weapons, Marco vs. couldn't last long, and the whip was damaged here and there after a few whips. But after all, the protagonist's halo is shrouded. At the critical point of Marco V's energy exhaustion, Tony finally took down the whipman. Whipman yelled that Tony was dead before being captured by S.H.I.E.L.D.'s men. But no one cared about him. The audience cheered for Iron Man. However, while cheering, no one noticed that Tony's face hidden under the steel armor was a bit ugly. The target element poisoning had already gone very deep, and the excessive use of steel armor had brought an extraordinary burden to his body. But who goes back and cares? They only care about Iron Man, not Tony. In this way, a crisis ended. Su Zichang turned off the TV, thinking about Tony's situation just now. A thought of making money rose in his mind. Target element poisoning may be equivalent to an incurable disease in Tony's view, but to Su Zichang, it is not a problem at all. It is no problem to exchange for a new energy blueprint in the system mall. In Iron Man 2, it has been shown that Tony can't find the energy to replace the target element on the Earth, so he will be so self-destructive. Su Zichang felt that he could take this opportunity to make a fortune. I believe Tony will be very willing to hire himself to help him find new energy. Hey, you are so bad. Su Zichang looked at himself in the mirror and smiled wickedly. Still have to wait a while. Tony is still in Morocco and it will be a few days before he comes back. Su Zichang also needs a break. No need to travel all the way to Morocco. About 3 days. Tony is back from Morocco. Don't ask Su Zichang how he knew. In the recent period, whether it's mobile phones, newspapers, or gossip news, even the little yellow nets are full of news about Tony. No wonder they are so keen. Knowing that a superhero actually exists in this world, and was just an ordinary person before that, people will inevitably feel excited. Moreover, it has only been so long. Su Zichang has already seen Iron Man's mask on the side of the road, and there must be Iron Man in the Cuz exhibition. You can't see it in the movies of the previous life. Only now can Su Zichang know how passionate these people are about Iron Man. Night. The moon is dark and the wind is high, the sky of murder and arson. Su Zichang was wearing a black hunter suit, like a shadow lurking in the dark. Manhattan. There were not many people on the road, so Su Zichang lurked very covertly on the roof of a building opposite the Stark building. However, the Stark building is a landmark building after all. It can be said to stand out among the surroundings, and the tallest one is only half the height of the Stark building, which is exactly the case where Su Zichang is now. He stepped on the edge of the top floor, looking at the tall Stark building, which really has a taste of Assassin's Creed. If there's a bunch of straw underneath, then jump down again. That's more like it. But Su Zichang is not that boring, he is not here for cosplay. One of the reasons for coming here is to enter the Stark building. The second is to test a very bold idea. Su Zichang took out the elemental bow from behind. Exhausting all the strength of the whole body, 30 points of physique plus the increased power of the hunter suit is terrifying, and the elemental bow is suddenly full. 2 white rays of light appeared from the upper tip and the lower tip of the bow of the elements, lingering on the bow like 2 elves, and finally gathered in the middle. An arrow that looks ordinary, but always feels very sharp. Hawkeye, turn on. Su Zichang's eyes were fixed, and a sharp light flashed in his eyes, and the scene reflected in his eyes became extremely clear. In ancient times, Genghis Khan bent his bow and shot at a big eagle. Today, I, Su Zichang, take the bow to the building. Absolute hit. Point the bow and arrow at the top of the skater building, which is Tony's office, where Tony usually lives and does research there. Let go. 30 times that of ordinary people, plus the power of the increase burst out instantly. The condensed arrows pierced through the air with a swish sound, and the terrifying force seemed to be able to tear apart the space. As for Su Zichang, it was at the moment when the arrow was shot. He jumped forward directly from the top of this tall building, leaping a terrifying distance of tens of meters, and then, his left hand, which was not holding a bow, grabbed it upwards. He actually grabbed the arrow that shot out instantly. Carrying the power of Su Zichang, the speed of the arrow did not decrease at all, and it did not mean to be fatally hit at all. Let the arrows fly with me. It's extremely fast, but with Hawkeye on, everything feels so slow. It's like flying. Su Zichang was excited and delighted. It is normal to be excited. After all, flying is the dream of many people. Although it is with the help of arrows, compared with airplanes, this kind of class is really infinitely closer to flight. As for the joy, it is naturally because of the joy that my idea has come true. Ordinary arrows definitely can't carry people up like this, even if they have 30 times the power, it won't help. Even if they have 30 times the power, that person can still show such an operation, and they can only advance a few meters at most. Under the circumstances, the power attached to the arrow has long been exhausted, and it is impossible to fly with people. But Su Zichang is different. When shooting the arrow, Su Zichang still used absolute hit. The concept of absolute hit LV.2 is absolutely terrifying. As long as the force and the arrow originally can withstand it, the arrow will not be affected in any way, and it is consistent with the speed and strength of Su Zichang at the moment when it is launched. Shoot towards the target. Not to mention LV.3, even if it turns gray, the load of force will go towards the target. At this stage, it has nothing to do with the file size of the force, which means that as long as the arrow continues, no matter how slow the speed is, like the Ferris wheel, Su Zichang will also be taken to fly. After all, his weight is not enough to make the arrow disappear. Definitely, if you want to kill, you still need strength, otherwise, who can you kill with a soft and slow blow? In fact, Su Zichang wanted to try it when he raised the absolute hit to LV.2. After all, as long as he has an elemental bow and strong strength, it is enough to bear his weight. A very simple thing. Besides, so what if it doesn't work, so what if you make a mistake? With a constitution of 30 points plus the hunter suit and LV.2 indestructible body, Su Zichang probably won't lose half a hair if he falls, and instead will be smashed into a big hole in the ground. If you are afraid of a hammer, you will not be a bounty hunter if you are afraid. Just like that, holding the arrow in his left hand, Su Zichang was carried by the arrow, turned into a ghost in midair, and suddenly appeared at an altitude of hundreds of meters, which was the Stark building, Tony Stark's office. Su Zichang let go of his hand, jumped down, and landed steadily on the edge of Stark's industrial floor-to-ceiling windows. As for the arrow, it still had enough strength left, pierced through the floor-to-ceiling windows, and stuck on the wall. Su Zichang didn't care and broke in directly from the outside. He saw Tony's office for the first time. To be honest, it's very luxurious, it doesn't look like an office at all. It even has a bar, and you can grab a lot of expensive ones on it. However, it was late now, so the lights were not turned on. Pong. The footsteps when landing, and the sound of glass shattering, caught a person's attention. Under Su Zichang's gaze, a European and American beauty with a wavy hair wearing a white shirt and skirt suddenly came out from the side. This person looks very familiar. Su Zichang narrowed his eyes slightly. Isn't that Natasha Romanoff? That's right, in this timeline, Natasha Romanoff is working as Tony's secretary under the guise of Natalie. Natasha Romanoff, on the other hand, stared vigilantly at the strangely dressed strange figure in front of her. She came here to lurk by Tony's side as a secretary, and in order to monitor Tony, Natasha Romanoff has been resting in Tony's office room these days. Definitely, don't get me wrong, the top floor of the Stark building is Tony's private place, and there is naturally more than one room. As an agent, the most basic ability is to be vigilant at all times, even when asleep, so Natasha Romanoff woke up the moment Su Zichang made a sound on the ground. People don't talk harshly. Natasha Romanoff felt that this person was not kind. Then he kicked off the high heels on his feet, stepped forward in a few quick steps, stuck to Su Zichang's body, grabbed his body with both hands, and jumped lightly. The whole person grabbed Su Zichang's waist with both hands and stood upside down. In a frightening yet flexible movement, two slender and powerful long legs grabbed Su Zichang's head. Immediately afterwards, all the strength of the whole body and the power of running just now were concentrated on the legs, pushing hard to the side, and at the same time, the hands were released from Su Zichang's waist, ready to fall to the ground at any time and turn over. If it was an ordinary person, he would have been thrown away by Natasha Romanoff's move. Unfortunately, Su Zichang is no ordinary person. Natasha Romanoff suddenly found that no matter how hard she tried, the man whose head was clamped by her didn't move at all. It's a little embarrassing. Natasha Romanoff's current posture is a bit subtle, with her feet clamping Su Zichang's head, plus she looks useless no matter how hard she tries, as if she is motionless, voluntarily hanging on Su Zichang's body like this. Cough cough. Su Zichang coughed awkwardly. Natasha Romanoff is wearing a skirt, with his head held between his thighs, and his perspective is facing a certain part that is described as being crabbed. Is Natasha Romanoff going to blow my head off with scissor legs? Now that his physique is 30 times that of ordinary people, he is not afraid of Natasha Romanoff's strength at all. No matter how she shows off, I only rely on strength to suppress her. This dress is so troublesome. Natasha Romanoff also seemed a little embarrassed, her feet loosened, her palms on the ground, she turned over quickly, and stood up quickly, as if she was not going to give Su Zichang any chance to react, and punched out the moment she turned over. Su Zichang also became interested, so he punched and kicked her. Fighting Natasha Romanoff is totally different than dealing with those guys before. Natasha Romanoff's combat experience and fighting experience belong to the top-notch category. Often this punch does not fall, and the next kick strikes unsuspectingly. For the first time, Su Zichang integrated the fighting technique into the battle. Definitely, he didn't use his full strength, otherwise it would be easy to hit Natasha Romanoff with internal injuries. Su Zichang came up with all kinds of moves one after another, using all the fighting techniques he had mastered, constantly increasing his combat experience, and the fight was hardy. Sanda, Baji, military fighting. The fighting technique used in battle has also become more proficient. However, Su Zichang is comfortable, but the person who makes him comfortable is not necessarily the case. Natasha Romanoff, who played against Su Zichang, was miserable. She felt that every punch and kick she hit was not a person, but a steel plate. The feeling of fighting against a steel plate made her feel numb all over, not to mention whether it could cause harm to others. The shock force of her own strength alone made her feel a little uncomfortable. Moreover, she also found out. This guy in front of him is not only physically perverted, but his fighting technique is also quite perverted. No matter what method he uses, he can find the corresponding moves to deal with, and he is getting more and more proficient, it is not too scary. Is this treating yourself as a training wooden dummy? Natasha Romanoff's eyes have long been on the bow behind Su Zichang and the arrow next to him. She knows that the most powerful thing about this strangely dressed guy is probably not his physical fitness and fighting technique. She could still feel that this guy kept his hand and didn't want to kill herself. And the movement of the battle between the two also attracted Tony, who was researching something in the underground research room. Then I saw the completely clean bar that was almost destroyed because of the battle between the two of them. Broken wine bottles and wine were scattered all over the floor. Oh shit. Tony couldn't help but swear. Looking at the two who were still fighting, he said repeatedly, "Stop hitting. Stop hitting. They're all from us. That. Natalie. Come here." My own? With a few quick steps, Natasha Romanoff backed up to Tony's side. Regardless of whether it is her own or not, she should find an excuse to get out first. If she continues to fight, she doubts that her hand will be crippled. When Su Zichang saw Tony coming, he stopped catching up. As much fun as it was to play with Natasha Romanoff, he never forgot his main purpose of being here. Tony rubbed the bridge of his nose and some messy hair with a headache. "Natalie. Who are you? And Mr. Bounty Hunter, why are you here?" During this period of time, Tony was annoyed by the fact that he was dying. Maybe he didn't show it in front of outsiders, but in private, he was often prone to collapse. Now two people are suddenly fighting in their own home. One is his secretary, and the other is the bounty hunter who once wanted to kill him. Tony is really not from the United States if he doesn't have a headache. Natasha Romanoff knew that her identity could no longer be concealed. She let out a breath, brushed her hair, and said openly, "My original name is Natasha Romanoff, and I am an agent sent by S.H.I.E.L.D. to protect you." Tony's mouth twitched. The secretary next to me is actually an agent. Who can bear this? No wonder I couldn't find a chance to get close to her, Shiete. Protect me? Can you think of a better excuse? He complained. To this, Natasha Romanoff shrugged and continued on the topic. Everyone is a smart person, so they naturally know what S.H.I.E.L.D. sent her for, so there is no need to say more. Mr. Tony, you'd better explain who this weirdo is in front of you. Tony also looked at Su Zichang, who was standing in front of the two. Mr. Bounty Hunter. What are you looking for? Is someone trying to kill me again? Natasha Romanoff narrowed her eyes slightly. Su Zichang spread his hands and coughed. Mr. Tony, I know your troubles, and I can solve them. My troubles? Tony shook his head and walked towards the sofa beside him. I don't have any worries, I'm very happy. Mr. Tony has been poisoned with palladium for a long time, and he is probably dying soon. The moment Tony sat down. When Su Zichang opened his mouth, his body froze slightly. Natasha Romanoff looked at Tony in surprise. Palladium poisoning? Life is not long? At this moment, Tony finally looked at Su Zichang squarely and fixed his eyes on him. Mr. Bounty Hunter, since you know about palladium poisoning, you must also know that there is currently no new energy source on Earth that can support me to replace palladium poisoning. Do not. Su Zichang shook his head, pretending to be mysterious and said, as long as you can give me a satisfactory price, I will help you find it and let you live comfortably. Oh. It turned out that they came to find a commission. However, although Su Zichang's expression was very obvious, Tony didn't mean much disgust, but instead raised hope. Maybe, he can really help him find it. What is the satisfactory price? Su Zichang pondered. 100 million, I'll help you find it. To be honest, 100 million is exchanged for one life, and blood is earned. If it can really save lives, it will be tens of billions, and Tony is willing to pay. 100 million is not enough. It's not that Su Zichang doesn't want to trick Tony more. The main reason is that since the last time the system made up for the loopholes, it has issued several restrictions on tasks. One of the most important points is that the bounty obtained for doing tasks should not be too exaggerated, otherwise it will not count. Otherwise, Su Zichang could go and threaten a rich man and ask him to issue a task of catching kittens and puppies for himself, earning him hundreds of billions. But this time Su Zichang was just trying to trick Tony. In the plot, Tony will get the new energy left by his father in the near future. He is already very satisfied to be able to earn 100 million from this kind of thing. 100 million? Tony took a deep look at Su Zichang. Just as Su Zichang thought. If new energy can be found, let alone 100 million, even 1 billion or tens of billions, he can pay. That's it, Mr. Bounty Hunter. Tony said, I hire you to find new energy sources, and if I find them, I will pay you 100 million. Ding. The prompt to accept the task sounds. A smile finally appeared on Su Zichang's face. At the same time, meditate in your heart. System Mall, buy new energy blueprints. New energy blueprint. The price is 100,000. It is a new type of energy on Earth, enough to replace target elements, and it is non-toxic and harmless. Purchased. A small U-disc projector appeared in Su Zichang's hunter space. This is a projector that includes holographic technology, in which there are new energy, drawings, and the structure and elements of new energy are all inside. Looking at the USB flash drive, Su Zichang smiled like a profiteer. Accept the mission. Su Zichang's deep voice came out. However, I don't know if this talisman meets your requirements. With that said, he threw out the USB drive. Natasha Romanoff at the side thought it was a hidden weapon, turned over and wanted to snatch it with bare hands. However, what Natasha Romanoff didn't expect was that the huge power generated by the USB drive brought her directly to Tony. Immediately afterwards, Natasha Romanoff was instantly lifted and slammed into the sofa next to her. Hiss. Natasha Romanoff took a deep breath. Although the sofa behind him did not cause any damage, the arm that was in contact with the USB drive was already sore and numb. The extremely powerful force rushed into her arm, like one after another extremely vicious snakes were running through her entire arm. It took her a long time to catch her breath. Su Zichang looked at Natasha Romanoff, who was resting on the sofa and couldn't help herself, and shook his head. Of course he didn't mean to kill Natasha Romanoff. But the other party attacked her after all, so a little punishment is still needed. The strength he exerted just now has not yet been exerted, it is only one arm at present, and as time goes by, it will slowly spread to two, enough to make Natasha Romanoff's arm unable to use any strength for 3 days, even wiping his butt. If you don't give her some punishment, do you really feel that you have lost your temper? Su Zichang really wanted to see the scene where Natasha Romanoff found that she had no strength after pooping, and sat on the toilet with a dazed expression, waiting for someone to help her wipe her butt. It's fun to think about it. As for Tony, he caught the USB flash drive with a dazed expression. When the force touched him, it was just released, and it fell into his palm as lightly as a feather. What kind of trick is this? I want to learn. Tony glanced at Natasha Romanoff, who was thrown into the air, and shook his head with an extremely exaggerated expression. Mr. Tony, that's not where your focus should be. Seeing Tony's playful appearance, Su Zichang reminded him. Oh yes. Only then did Tony react, and lightly pressed a button on the USB disk. Suddenly, several rays of light shone out, and several formulas and models that ordinary people could not understand appeared in the air in a virtual way. This. New energy. It's really new energy. Tony looked at the 10 lines at a glance, and was extremely shocked. At the same time, the way he looked at Su Zichang was full of complaints. Are you waiting for me right here? Holding the new energy in my hand but not saying anything, I had to wait for myself to release 10 missions and offer rewards, so I'm already sure, isn't it? However, thinking so, Tony has been completely fascinated by new energy, and the excitement in his heart is beyond words. Amazing. Awesome. This is a new energy source that can keep you alive. Happy. Really happy. Don't say 100 million, even tens of billions Tony is willing to pay. Mr. Tony, are you satisfied? Su Zichang stood by and waited for a while. Oh, satisfied. Satisfied. It was only then that Tony remembered that Mr. Bounty Hunter was still waiting, and quickly closed the virtual screen. Mr. Hunter, come with me, and I will transfer the money to you now. Su Zichang nodded and followed. That leaves Natasha Romanoff, who can't move on the couch. Natasha Romanoff was in so much pain that she couldn't cry, so she could only lean on the sofa aggrieved, waiting for the numbness on her body to fade away. Definitely, the premise is that she doesn't know what will happen to her afterward. Otherwise, even at the risk of being killed by Su Zichang, she would rush forward to fight Su Zichang.